What would you do if you were faced with impossible odds? These 10 individuals defied all expectations and survived against all odds. From atomic bombings to lightning strikes, their stories will leave you inspired and amazed. Hey FactFrenzy family, welcome back to another exciting video. Today, we've got a special treat for you. Top 10 impressive cases of people that have survived the impossible. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to join our FactFrenzy community. We post amazing content like this every week. Let's dive into their extraordinary tales. Number 10. Tsutomu Yamaguchi, 2 nuclear blasts. On the 6th of August 1945, 29-year-old Japanese ship engineer Tsutomu Yamaguchi walked to Hiroshima Station to go home. He did not know then that he would be present at one of the greatest tragedies in Japanese history. At about 8:00 a.m., as he was hurrying to catch his train, the air raid siren sounded, and just a few minutes later, he witnessed the massive nuclear blast over Hiroshima. Yamaguchi was a full 3 kilometers from the epicenter, yet the shockwave from the explosion threw him meters back, leaving him with severe burns all over his body. The next day, he did catch a train and returned to his family for treatment, which unfortunately was in Nagasaki. After exactly 3 days in bed, he left home and heard the air raid sirens again. He couldn't believe he was seeing a second, even more powerful nuclear blast, being again about 3 kilometers away from it, and again surviving to tell the tale. Tsutomu Yamaguchi died at the age of 93, and is the only Japanese recognized by the government to have survived both atomic bombings. Number 9. Roy Sullivan is struck by 7 lightning bolts. When Roy Sullivan became a forest ranger in 1936, he was warned that he was at high risk of being struck by lightning. However, he didn't pay much attention to these words because generally, the chance of being struck by lightning is 1 in 15,000 or so, he thought. In 1942, while observing the woods, he got his first strike. I say first, my dear friends, because Roy survived 7 lightning encounters in his lifetime. And that's why Guinness gave him the nickname, the Lightning Rod Man. Over the years in various situations, such as while barbecuing, in the car, axing wood, and even in the boat, he was struck surviving all 7 lightning strikes. The odds of this happening in such a period of time are 1 in 100 quintillion. That's 100 with 30 zeros after it. Even though none of them managed to kill him, one still set his hair on fire and another injured his ankle. Roy committed suicide at the age of 71 after depression over unrequited love. Number 8. Aaron Ralston, 5 days stuck by a rock. Aaron Ralston was an experienced mountaineer climber and thrill seeker who more than once relied on luck to get him out of tricky situations. In 2003, Aaron decided to visit one of Utah's canyons all by himself, and that's when his luck ran out. He fell and a huge rock wedged his right arm. The place was extremely sparsely visited and the shouts were meaningless. Its water is also scarce, and at night the temperatures drop. He had a camera on which he recorded farewell videos for his loved ones, and after 4 days spent captive on the stone, Aaron began to give up. He survived even after a flash flood, but what he decided to do on the 5th day will shock many of you. His crushed hand, dear friends, began to rot and poison his blood. So he took out his pocket knife and amputated it himself because he was losing it anyway. Thus freed from the trap without one hand, he rushed to seek help. Years later, his story served as the inspiration for the film 127 Hours. That's how long he was stuck. I recommend it, it's a good one. Number 7. Vesna Vulvic, falling out of a plane. Can you imagine being on board a plane that is the target of a terrorist attack and explodes mid-flight? This is not a script from a movie at all, but a very true story. In 1972, the Serbian Vesna Vulvic was a flight attendant on board a McDonnell Douglas during a scheduled flight from Stockholm to Belgrade. Shortly after entering Serbian airspace, a bomb in the plane's luggage exploded, or it was hit by a missile, still unknown, and so it split into 3 parts in midair. Vulvic survived the blast, but was crushed by the food trolley, and, along with the fuselage, plummeted straight down from over 10 flans high. Her part of the plane fell near the village of Srpska Kamenika, and the day after a heavy snowfall. Believe it or not, she survived at the cost, of course, of several traumas, multiple broken bones, and a temporary coma. Eventually, Vulvic made a full recovery and even went on to be a flight attendant. I wouldn't go near a plane if I were her. Today, she holds the Guinness record for the highest jump from an airplane without a parachute in history. Number 6. Harrison Oain, 3 days underwater. The story of 29-year-old Harrison Oain, to whom fate has been pious, to say the least. 29-year-old Harrison Oain, to whom fate has been pious, to say the least. In 2013, he began working as a cook aboard a ship, where he had yet to gain his culinary experience. Suddenly, however, a powerful storm hit, resulting in huge waves, one of which directly capsized the ship and it began to sink. Everyone on board perished except Oain, who somehow ended up in an air pocket. The ship hit the bottom at 30 meters deep, and Harrison started to lose hope in this small space. There he spent 3 whole days in impenetrable darkness and freezing cold, and just as his oxygen began to run out and the man to give up, a miracle happened. Divers found the air pocket and photographed the stunned Oain, who couldn't believe his eyes. The footage is authentic and is from the camera of one of the rescuers. Can you even imagine what he experienced? 3 whole days at the bottom of the sea at 30 depth in some air pocket in total darkness, in the absolute freezing cold and water up to his waist. 3 days like that. Today he works as a diver. Number 5. Julianska to beat the rabies. When a person begins to show symptoms of rabies, then his life is seriously threatened. It is a severe inflammation of the brain leading to paralysis and certain death. That is why it is good to be vaccinated, and when we are bitten by a dog or any wild animal, we should immediately go to the hospital and seek help. However, the case of Julianska is an exception. She is the only person on the planet to be cured of rabies and is a real medical mystery. As she was walking in the park, she was bitten by a bat, but the young lady did not pay much attention to the wound and did not seek medical attention. Later, she began to show strange symptoms and was diagnosed with rabies. Therefore, there was no hope for the girl. Then, Dr. Rodney Willoughby put her in a medicated coma to suppress the symptoms and give the girl some more time. Without much hope, he let her immune system try against the virus, and a miracle happened. 5 days later, she woke up, and just a month after that, she was discharged perfectly healthy with no damage. Jean forever etched her name in history as the only person cured of rabies without a vaccine. Number 4. Jose Alvarenga, 14 months lost in the ocean. On January 30th, 2014, they found this man in a helpless state on a beach in the Marshall Islands. When authorities established his identity, he turned out to be Jose Alvarenga, who was reported missing back in 2012 in Mexico. This man, my dear friends, survived 14 months or over a year on a fishing boat in the open ocean and was found almost in Australia, having traveled 5,470 miles. Originally, there were 2 in the boat, but his mate died in the 4th week. Jose fed mostly on fish. He drank turtle blood and strained salt water through his clothes to survive. After spending 11 days in the hospital, he had to learn to walk again. The other man's family filed a lawsuit against Jose, alleging cannibalism and seeking $1 million in punitive damages. They thought Jose had been eating him for weeks to survive, but no proof of this was found. He is recorded as the only person to survive over a year at sea. Number 3. Peter Schilberg survived 2 months in a car at minus 30 degrees Celsius. On December 19th, a 44-year-old Swede went off the main road because of a snowstorm, and a mile later fell into a drift he could not get out of. The snow quickly overwhelmed his car, and he remained trapped inside until spring. For over 2 months, he was found by people who decided to take their snowmobiles for a ride, and would even pass him for a while because they thought that was an abandoned car. When they looked inside, however, they saw a man in a sleeping bag lying in the back seat and immediately called for help. Peter had survived the first weeks on the provisions he had in the car. He ran out of fuel on the 2nd or 3rd day, and then ate nothing but snow for a month. Experts think he went into some kind of hibernation in those minus 30 degrees, and that's how he kept himself alive. Otherwise, according to experienced mountaineers, you simply cannot go more than 2 or 3 days without food in these conditions. The most interesting thing about this story, however, is that no one has reported him missing. Later, it turned out that the man owed 150,000 euros in taxes, so now the authorities are writing it off as a suicide attempt, but an unsuccessful one. Number 2. Joe Simpson, 3 days in an ice crack. In 1985, Joe Simpson, together with his friend Simon Yates, set out on a mountain adventure to the Peruvian Andes, with the aim of climbing the summit of the Ciudad Grande, which until then had been unconquered. The climb to the top, although quite difficult, was still successful, but on the descent, Joe broke his leg and could not continue. The weather conditions were also not on their side, and this forced the two to rappel down sheer cliffs to their camp. However, right in the middle of the descent, Simpson slipped and went over a huge crevasse in one of the glaciers, taking Yates with him. However, the rope couldn't support them both and began to tear. This forced Simon to make the worst decision of his life. He took a knife from his pack and cut the rope beneath him, sending Joe to certain death in the icy crevasse. Miraculously, however, Joe survived by falling onto a snow-covered terrace. With a broken leg and other injuries, and no food or water, He spent 3 days climbing step by step to the crevasse's exit, and then another 2 days crawling to camp to be rescued. That's what I call an iron will. There is a whole movie dedicated to this story of Joe Simpson, who, by the way, is now a motivator lecturing all over the world. Number 1. Julianska. 11 days in the Amazon after falling out of a plane. On the 24th of December, 1971, the 17-year-old Julianska eagerly boarded a plane from Lima in Peru to return to her parents, who were at a research station deep in the Amazon jungle. About 30 minutes after takeoff, the plane entered a severe thunderstorm and lightning struck the wing. The machine began to disintegrate at 6,500 meters altitude. Julianne lost consciousness and fell tied to the seat to wake up in dense vegetation with no one else around. She miraculously survived the fall. She escaped with only a dislocated knee and superficial wounds. She spent the whole day hanging on the seat, as she then freed herself and found a box of sweets. Later, she found a spring of water and followed its stream for 11 days until she reached a settlement of loggers who rescued her. Can you imagine surviving a fall from a plane and ending up in the Amazon jungle where everything living wants to kill you? Spiders, snakes, and whatnot. There's a 2011 film in which she narrates and relives it all. They even found the wreckage of the plane she went down in. These 10 survivors remind us that the human spirit can triumph in the face of unimaginable challenges. Their stories of resilience, courage, and sheer willpower inspire us to never give up and to find strength in the most difficult of circumstances. We hope you enjoyed these incredible survival stories. If you found them as inspiring as we did, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more captivating tales. See you next time.